Okay, we need to talk about Tim Dillon, because this self-proclaimed open book has a lot of big secrets. So everyone knows Tim Dillon is the quick-witted comic with an incredibly successful podcast. And while Tim likes to dish about his drug-fueled criminal past, fans have recently been poking some big holes in these stories. While Tim has talked extensively about his childhood, schools, and rehabs, he's never actually provided any proof of any of this. And in fact, documents have recently surfaced indicating that Tim Dillon actually grew up in Hawaii. Apparently, his one-time best friend in high school has come out claiming that Tim Dillon never did a drug in his life, and even saying Tim was the captain of the high school football team. Now, while this seems hard to believe, in truth, Tim Dillon has always been shrouded in mystery, and you won't believe why. Tim Dillon is actually fully blind. You'll notice he's almost always wearing Stevie Wonder-like large sunglasses, even indoors. And if you've ever seen him perform live, you might have noticed there's a specific radius he never steps out of. So apparently, Tim Dillon intentionally blinded himself in a massive insurance scam. And to understand how he got here, you have to go all the way back to freshman year of high school, where Tim discovered the band Incubus. And he became a mega fan, claiming this group helped him get through some really tough times. And Tim was the kind of purist fan who didn't like that Incubus was lumped in with groups like Korn or Limp Bizkit. He saw Incubus as musically and lyrically superior to these other rap rock bands. And he couldn't stand low-grade copycats like Hoobastank or Audiovent. Even if they had Incubus's endorsement, Tim was fiercely protective, and he was reportedly enraged to see someone other than him as the Incubus mega fan on MTV's short-lived TV show Fanatic, even vowing to one day kill the winner of that competition. So for 4 years of high school, Incubus is Tim Dillon's identity. But in the middle of 2003, Incubus's bassist Dirk Lance abruptly left the group, sending young Tim Dillon into a tailspin. He simply couldn't accept another lineup change in the band. You see, Incubus originally had a different DJ named Gavin, but in 1998 he was replaced with DJ Kilmore. And friends say Tim had already had a tough time accepting this new member. So when Dirk Lance leaves Incubus, sanity leaves Tim Dillon. He immediately drops out of college and starts committing petty crimes. After Morning View, nothing really mattered anymore. And when Incubus releases their first CD, A Crow Left of the Murder, with new bassist Ben Kenny, Tim started lashing out at the only friends he had left. Eventually, the troubled youth found himself locked up after sending threatening letters to the band, and even interrupting a live performance on Jimmy Kimmel, screaming, "You used to be a fusion band, and now you have as much bite as Gavin DeGraw." Well, as you can imagine, Tim eventually found himself broke, without a hope, and about to be evicted from his Hawaii apartment. And that's when he came up with this wild plot to temporarily blind himself and get on disability. So Tim does the unthinkable and pours a full bottle of Sour Punch Sobe into his eyes and stares at the sun for 30 seconds, blinding him for 3 days. Just enough time to prove he's blind and start landing big government checks. But that's when fate stepped in. See, for 3 days, Tim couldn't see, so he never even thought to blink. And by the time his sight should have come back, he realized he was in fact permanently blinded from his lack of blinking. His eyes had completely dried out. And of course, Tim couldn't tell anyone what happened because they already thought he was blind. So Tim's lie became Tim's truth. So Tim finds himself blind in Hawaii on disability and living comfortably. He's no longer in danger of losing everything, and he's finally taken care of and safe. But that very quickly led to boredom. And now, with so much time on his hands, Tim found himself frequenting slam poetry contests, where he would enter and speak exclusively about Incubus's post-Dirk Lance albums. Now, pretty much nobody in these slam poetry events knew what he was even talking about, but they found Tim funny and somewhat charming, and eventually one of the other performers recommended Tim try out an open mic comedy night with his material. Well, maybe it was in the stars, or maybe it was just in the zeitgeist of the time, but as soon as Tim got in front of the right audience, his anti-Incubus rants shot him into stardom in Hawaii, and after that, he became a touring comic and moved to Los Angeles. And you all know the rest about him getting pulled into the Roganverse and blowing up into the highest levels of financial domination, and he's gonna need that money for the lawsuit that's apparently coming his way. Apparently last week at the Comedy Store, Tim Dillon was informed after performing that the lead singer of Incubus, Brandon Boyd, was actually in attendance. Well, allegedly, Tim had one of his bodyguards run up and shove human poop into Brandon Boyd's mouth. And you can imagine the confusion and chaos that erupts as Brandon has no idea who Tim Dillon or his security guard even are. So a big brawl breaks out, obviously, and we've got this footage here, and it's hard to tell who's fighting fighting, but rest assured, this is all Tim Dillon's doing, and it seems it's also going to be his undoing. Even more shocking, last week a video was released showing Tim Dillon and Kat Von D making love in a tent at Burning Man in 2017, leading some to believe that Tim Dillon might not even be gay. Maybe the disturbing truth with Tim is that there is no truth. Okay, that's it for now. Tim Dillon, you're a total bitch. Alright TB Nation, our small empire is being threatened by Hulu narcs, so get this video out there and help me expose Tim Dillon before we get shut down.